we're going to talk a little bit now about Bronze Age finds, okay? And it's a bit of a tricky subject because it depends where in the world you are as to how relevant some of the information is. So I have chosen to talk about Europe as a whole. And the reason for that is because we can see from Europe that there are specific periods in time where certain things happen. For instance, we know that, in fact, let's get my little pen out here. So we know that in Britain, that bronze, which is, by the way, copper and tin fused together, tin hardens copper, was first used before, let's say, most of the rest of Europe. And the rest of Europe obviously knows about this because of existing trade networks that exist. And I'm going back an extremely long time ago. This is from a place called Amesbury. And this is from the same time period of what we're going to start talking about here. Chris Gates says the gold hoard is now with the FLO for the next 2 years. Cool. That must be the three hammered gold coins with the Elizabeth I on there as well. So sorry, it's going to take 2 years. Hopefully it doesn't. In fact, next week, by the way, next month, we have a major international auction house are going to be on stream, not live, but I'm going to interview them in the next couple of weeks. And I can't wait to show you guys everything that has been discussed. We've already talked in the background. We've fleshed out what we're going to talk about. So I'm very pleased to advise that Spinks Auction House of Britain, who have a colourful history going back to the Americas, they were the first foundry that produced the Massachusetts. Is it Massachusetts? I believe it's a Massachusetts coin, which is the first ever American coin produced, I understand. I'm talking like 1650 thereabouts. So anyway, back to Amesbury. Just getting my soldiers in a row. The bronze finds. Let's put this into context for those who don't know. So we've got our bronze axes here. This is from a hoard, which possibly in the British Museum, I don't know. We've got some gold pieces as well. This smaller one probably would have been adorned a torque, which is usually worn around the neck. It would have been a series of them. But the key things here, of course, are the axes. Now, these are from an earlier period. Okay, so in the later period, there is what we call a socketed axe head, and that looks a little bit like this. So this is the sort of the design theory over 1,000 times. Theresa Case says 1652. Yeah, sounds about right for that coin. Usually I've got everything in my head ready to go, but I couldn't quite remember exactly what that coin is. It's got a picture of a tree on it, as I remember correctly. Both Southern Relic Adventures and Dig, Deus 2 Group, have had one on their collective pages. So yeah, great piece. Anyway, so we've got here, this is a socketed knife, by the way, and you can see it has its little hole for where it would be attached. These are, of course, as I just mentioned from earlier on, are often found in the same sort of context of a hoard. This is something, this is gold. And this ring, again, would have been as part of a talk. And the reason why I mention that is because, you know, when you've got a valuable resource, you will find that people who want to come and get some of it or take some of it. Hi, Kevin, by the way. Thank you for joining us. You'll find, of course, that they often bring their own tradable elements to it. So more on that in just a second. But I just wanted to show you, just to start off with, some of these early axes. They have a very particular profile to them. You'll spot some of them are cracked. So we've got one here that's been cracked. Some of them is purposefully cracked, mind, but others have just broken off. And the key reason for that, in fact, if I've got my paperwork in front of me, I might have, let's just see. The key reason why we might find that there are fragments to things are to do with basically, let's just bring this over here. Here we are, the type of use. So if you if you want to create a metal object which acts as a defensive piece, so when something hits it, it kind of cushions or softens to an extent that blow, but doesn't obviously absorb and cut straight through, you would use something like, say, copper. But when you wanted something that was going to be extremely hard, you would add tin to it, and tin makes things significantly stronger. And that is, of course, bronze, an alloy of copper and tin. And that's where you would get things like, say, spears and swords and so on. So I thought that was just a good sort of guide. By the way, to those who have just joined us, if you put !join in lowercase, no spaces between, you could enter our draw. I can see we've got 11 entries in at the moment. Get rid of the music that was going on in the background. And back on with what we were talking about. So when we're talking about axe heads and we're talking about trade and so on, you have to forgive my rather poorly taken photograph here. This is a map of the British Isles. And the British Isles, for those who are unawares, is over here. The British Isles has tin here. The Iberian Peninsula has higher amounts of tin here as well. We've got some in Brittany. We've got a little bit over here as well. And we've got a small around about here. These are ancient tin resources known. And of course, as you probably know, this is Greece. I should have done a different color, sorry. Greece and Grecian area, should I say, and we've got Italy here, or Rome. Remember, Rome was split into provinces. It didn't just, come to be Rome. It was many other things that joined together. And it is documented in ancient Greek and indeed Roman scripts from down the ages of what they call the Tin Isles. Okay, and the Tin Isles is, no one who wrote down about it knew where it was. All they knew is that some point over in this direction there was tin, okay, which would allow them to create their hardened weapons. Okay, so again, we've got a lot of tin here. Now, when we go back to sort of the year 2300 BC, so a little bit earlier by quite a way, I would say, we have, as I said earlier on, we've got lots of activity in Britain, which looks like this. This is from the same sort of time period. I might be a little bit out by a few hundred years, but it won't be thousands out. We've got a series of earthworks that appear in Britain. They're appearing at a very similar time as well. This is, again, is the Amesbury rings, again, appearing at a very similar time here. In fact, I've got a sort of a artist's reconstruction of what that would have looked like. You can see the ring ditch. This is what it would have looked like, and you can just about see a person here for scale. So this is extremely deep, and it would have been for largely religious reasons, most of which is lost to us. But we find that these have been that crop up at about the same time as we know that people are coming in from the Alpine regions, and they're coming in towards Britain. And indeed, this comes on to our next, hopefully, guys, you're finding this quite interesting. Our next piece, which is about the this fellow here. Now, this is called the Amesbury Archer. It's from around about 2300 BC. It's a famous skeleton for a number of reasons. It is from what we call the Beaker pottery sort of lore, if you like. The Beaker people are known to have taken a lot of their technology practices, but also a lot of their wealth into places that have good trade. Britain is a place with good trade. And they're called, by the way, the Amesbury Archer because there is quite a number of of arrowheads. You can see just about in the bottom, hopefully if you've got a big enough screen. There are some flint arrowheads in there as well. These are definitely later period flints, and this is what we were using in Britain largely at the time. We don't know who actually discovered bronze. I suspect it would be happen chance, but for whatever reason, this fellow here came from the Alpine region, and they've actually, using special dating techniques, been able to say exactly which village area this person came from, and he traveled to Britain. Now, we also find that, of course, we've got a lot of these religious things coming up at the time. Are people creating hill forts to try and repel people that are coming here, or are they instead actually creating some sort of religious, like a religious guidance, if you like? That's one of the key questions that are facing archaeologists today. But I wanted to just sort of demonstrate a little bit about this before we sort of go back to our finds. By the way, early Bronze Age, we've got things like this dirk. So a dirk is a very, it's a rapier, dirk, whatever you want to call it. Quite a thick, wide bronze piece, bronze sword. And a number of those come up, but a number of them come up with either intentional breaks or accidental breaks. And part of the reason for that is if you add, again, tin to something, you'll find that it will possibly break. This map of the British Isles here, the hot spot on this bit here and this bit here, this represents the major amount of, well, it says here axe head intensity. So these are the amount of fine spots for axe heads throughout the Bronze period. And you can see there's a massive amount here and there's a massive amount down here, which coincidentally, by the way, when we have the Romans that arrive in AD 43, beyond Caesar's original holiday here in Britain, they went to the same areas, and that is, again, not just sheer chance, I can assure you. By the way, copper deposits are elsewhere. So people that have a lot of copper and people down here in the far southwest who have a lot of tin, that isn't where we find a lot of axe heads. It's actually these areas here, the trading hubs, which probably take the raw information and, the raw material and create something. And just as one final bit here, we have found, as in people, we have found that there is tin that has come from this area. Can I make this blue? So there is tin that has been mined in this area, and isotropic analysis, that's not right, a chemical analysis has proven that, come on, Chris, will it do it? Why did I choose blue in the sea? I do apologize, everyone. Has found that there is an ingot from the same mining area found here in a ship from the Bronze Age. All right, so we've got trade that is working so well in the Bronze Age that you can get a tin ingot that has exactly the same lettering here as was found in a little island there. Back to the Tin Isles, you might find lots of resources on this. We don't know what the Tin Isles are. Archaeologists don't really know, but speculative, it could well be this area here. It could also potentially be Brittany, but the reason why no one knows is because the islands have silted up somewhat. So it's, rather than an island, it's, part now of the mainland itself. So a tricky one, and one that we will understand, and that is why metal detecting is so important, and this is what I do as part of some of my interest with the British Museum. These are later axe heads. Look at this. This is beautiful example. Some of these are offerings found often near water, but otherwise you'll find them in what, of course, would be possibly lodged in a tree once upon a time. And this is again, you would have seen this from one of our early photographs. This is a socketed knife, so thought you'd find that interesting as well. This here looks like an arm ring. The finder is not too sure at the moment, but they reached out, and I suspect as they do, it's an arm ring. And you can see, by the way, just to reinforce further, that when you add tin to a bladed item, that it becomes brittle, and that's why you have some bits that crack off on the side, by the way. There's some other gold work as well, which is very exciting. Trade, you know. Let's see what we've got. There's a massive sword here somewhere. If I found, where's that? Not overly sure of the provenance of this photograph, but I put it there because someone's put it on the group, so well done you. I think if I found that in my garden, I wouldn't go to work the next day. You get also offerings as well. This is actually probably only about that long, you know, it's or that diameter, should I say. Okay, hopefully you found that quite interesting. I don't think I've got anything really further to add. Just one final photograph that I would say, or two photographs that I'd say, is this one. So for all of these rings and things that you find across the landscape, you will often find that there is evidence of post holes as well. So if you imagine for areas that don't have a series of stones, you would have instead a series of posts that would rise very, very high in the air, and it would just make it embellish it even more. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Guys, if you enjoyed that chat, please put something in the chat just to say thanks, or not thanks, but like a heart or whatever. I don't know.